Women Who Own It podcast spotlights women business owners who are pioneers in their field, setting trends, blazing trails, and creating game-changing innovations. Brought to you by WeBank, the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the U.S. and a leading advocate for women business owners and entrepreneurs. And me, Allison Maslan. I've been a business owner for the last 35 years. I'm the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the book Scale or Fail. So join our bold community of women who built it, grew it, and own it. I'll see you on the show. Welcome to the WeBank podcast, Women Who Own It. I am your host, Allison Maslan. I am a business mentor. I'm the author of Scale or Fail and the CEO of Pinnacle Global Network, where we mentor business owners all over the world to grow and scale their business. So Women Who Own It, which is a WeBank podcast, and WeBank is the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the U.S. It is an incredible organization, and Women Who Own It is for business leaders like you by business leaders. And we are bringing to you some of the most incredible, successful, brilliant, amazing business owners, women business owners around the world to give you insight and to help you take their strategies and their wisdom so you can apply it to your business right now. And so today I'm super excited because I have one of those amazing businesswomen here with me today. Natalie King is the recognized food and culture expert. She's a speaker, author, and entrepreneur. She is a native of Smyrna, Georgia, and the founder CEO of Chinese Southern Belle, LLC, which is a pioneering small business that makes the world a better place through the power of food and culture. So through unique interactive classes and tours, storytelling presentations, and a line of award-winning natural cooking sauces, Chinese Southern Belle supports diversity and inclusion, healthy living, local businesses and farms, and cross-cultural understanding. Opening minds one mouth at a time. I love that tagline. Natalie and her popular co-host and mother, Margaret King, have hosted 400 plus cooking events. Wow. Including an annual 200 guest Lunar New Year dinner and the original Buford Highway International Corridor tasting tours. Wow. So, Natalie, welcome to the WeBank podcast.
Ni hao, y'all. Thank you so much, Allison, and thank you to WeBank for doing this.
Well, I am so excited that you're here, and what you have created is absolutely remarkable. So I have so many things that I want to ask you, so I want to really dive right in. And so before you started Chinese Southern Belle, you were on a very different career path. Can you tell us, just, give us that Reader's Digest version, what led you to divert and start this current business?
Well, it really was something that was not planned completely. I think it was authentic, but not planned and organic. And I think some of my family members are still trying to figure out what I'm doing. But I think I have to trace it really back to college. Vassar College opened my eyes. First time the nexus between being a woman and being Asian American really came together. There was an incident that involved some stereotyping against Asian Americans in the college newspaper. And for the first time, I was trying to figure out how to, respond to it. I mean, I had never spoken out before, so I ended up convening one of the first multicultural, multiracial dialogues on race and ethnicity. And that was the first time I talked to all the different student groups and reached out across, the Jewish groups and the Black American group and the Latino, and just said, this is affecting me, and I realized it's affecting them too. So why don't we get together and have an honest dialogue, not with all the answers, but just have a dialogue. And then during college, I also took women's studies. I did my first women's marches. So that was really when my eyes were open. So my path since then has really reflected, I think, my passion around, just feeling lucky to be American, right? Feeling lucky to be a woman and wanting to fulfill my own dream and my parents' dream of being American, but also for everyone else too. Like, why can't we all have that opportunity? So I guess every step I took after that, I decided to work in the Atlanta City Council, and then my eyes were open to the legislative part, right? The part where if you call and engage with your elected official, you might make a difference. So that led me to the path of getting a master's degree from the Harvard Kennedy School in public policy and social policy.
Wow.
Now, a lot of folks now are like, well, wait a second, you have a master's degree from Harvard in public policy and you are doing cooking demos. Now
Yeah,
connect that for me, right?
I know. That is quite a different trajectory.
Right. So how did you get from there to food? Well, again, I guess my life has been about connections, and maybe that's just how I'm wired. And it's not a better or worse thing. It's just I see the connections between things. So early on, it was about, race and ethnicity and gender. And then I realized, through working in my family's restaurant, all right, so we had a food exposure there. I worked forever in our family restaurant, and it was one of the first ones in Smyrna, one of the first ones in Cobb. And so I think realizing that food was a way to bring people together, not only in my family, right? We always gathered around the dinner table, right? And you would have different conversations. Well, I realized that through food, you could also bring people together, through a potluck. And you would have conversations and sharing and friendships and maybe business cards exchanged that you wouldn't have through any other medium. Of course, you can have a panel, you can have a forum, right? And we need those, right? But I think through breaking bread, breaking egg rolls together, I realized that we could really, make a difference, and it was just close to my heart. And so after I learned about some of the policy issues around the environment and the agriculture, and also more about how our government worked, and felt even more determined to make our democracy fair and work for more than just me, right? I had my eyes open to some of the inequities, right? Some of the history that we have in our country around the treatment of different people based on difference. So I became even more determined to see what pathway could I take. And I thought private-public partnerships would be one way. So that's why I went to the Kennedy School as well. But I ended up, after I graduated, I ended up working in the nonprofit sector around social justice. So I went from government to nonprofit. And then I was very satisfied with the nonprofit. I did social justice, I did leadership and diversity training. I really brought things together around, social and economic inequities, and worked with all different sectors around it. But then I realized I still needed to pay my loans back, from my
Right. Oh,
schooling. So I'm
yeah.
like, all right, I need to make some money, right?
Yes.
So like, I got to pay my loans back. So let's see what I could learn from the private sector, because I knew from the Kennedy School that private, public, and nonprofit partnerships were really key to solving some of the world's big problems, right? Around homelessness, around hunger. And I saw how NGOs and for-profit and corporations and government really all needed to come together. And I'm like, all right, so I will learn from the private sector, and then I will try to pay my loans back. So that's when I diverted again, pivot, and went to the private sector and learned a lot from my private sector days, in addition to paying down my loans. And during that time, I also started volunteering more. So I got more involved with the community. And, since I went to the School of Government, I decided, well, you got to walk the talk. You can't just talk about advocacy and action and talk about civic engagement. You have to do it. So I ran for local office, and it was the first time that I'd ever done it. I had no idea really what I was doing. I kind of studied up on the Women's Political Caucus Handbook. I went to a workshop, and that time, even Google wasn't that popular. And I'm like, well, I don't have a lot of money, but I have, a small community. I can just knock on doors. I can have, a town hall meeting. I can stand at the ShopRite and just get signatures, because I had to do a petition. And it was in the middle of winter, and there's all these snow drifts. I'm like a kid from Georgia. I'm not used to all this snow. So I was like climbing over snowdrifts because the election was in April. So I'm in like January, freezing my butt off, trying to get the signatures. But that's what it's about, And so I just slowly door to door did that. And it was an amazing experience, even though my dad jokes with me and says, you know how small an office that was? It was so local. You're kind of like a little sesame seed on a bun, Natalie. He was just like, that's not a major office. I'm like, I know, but I won.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
learned,
That's so impressive. That's so
So,
impressive.
yeah. So, I mean, those are some of the, I guess, the connections that makes sense to me because I live an integrated kind of life, and I'm like, hey, this is connected to this, and where our food comes from is related to the agricultural policy, and wow, I need to talk to my local politician. And then, hey, like women farmers, you learn about the role of gender and growing food in our world, right? And then you learn about healthcare because we're trying to all take care of each other and eat well, right? And then you learn about diet and the food pyramid, and it's just kind of all connected to me. But it may not be clear to everybody else. And so this led me to coming home. Really, it all led to coming home, and I didn't plan on it. I just decided that my family, my parents in particular, and my mother were a part of my story and a part of my journey, and I wanted to learn more about my heritage, not only about food history, but about what they went through to give me the opportunity and privileges that I had and as an American, right? So again, kind of the thankfulness about our government, our democracy, and what it could be for everyone. So I came home to capture those stories. Not just about food, that there's a lot of food and culture stories in there, but also about, just some of the hardships, some of the challenges, but also the positive stories of, who helped them along the way. And so similarly, I mean, I've had mentors and folks help me along the way of my journey too. And so I hope to be able to give back a little bit. I noted in the bio that it said, or not in my bio, but your comment, you said hugely successful. I'm not sure I'm hugely successful yet, but I would like to be. But I think that I am personally more successful than I am probably financially, because it has been difficult as well. So I'm sure we'll talk
Yeah.
about some of those challenges too.
Yeah. I mean,
COVID.
I'm going to definitely do that. But, the fact that you were going door to door, climbing through the snow, I mean, that is determination. And obviously you were led by your heart and something that you truly cared about. And, I think there are a lot of people that think about things they want to do or think about things that they care about, but they don't actually, make it happen like you have. So I feel like that's super inspiring. So thank you for sharing that. So what have been some of the biggest lessons through this process the last several years, or, even early on, that shaped the way you approach your business now?
Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to the fact that I am very lucky to be able to do this, because of what my parents were able to give me, and because of just, what I was born into. We didn't have much money, and I understand that not everybody has the choices I have, but I hope that my story will inspire that there's a lot to be said for perseverance and for having helping hands along the way. You can start out with not very much, right?
Yeah.
And you can take the leap, take the risk, um, to do something completely different from what you did in order to follow your passion. At the same time, I have learned, one of the big lessons learned is it is still really important, because being your own, being your own kind of employer, being your own manager and your own business, and being a woman and being small, it really does take the same components as a big business to be successful. So make sure that you have your health, right? You have to do the self-care. So that's one of the lessons that I've learned, is that if I don't sleep and drink enough and, you know, have the energy to do this, then I can't help myself and I can't help my community. So self-care is really number one, because it takes a lot of energy to do this. I mean, not only, you know, if you wanted to volunteer, run for office and get those signatures, but if you just wanted to start a business, you not only have to have your kind of smart business components in gear, you know, like have your, you know, a little bit of a business plan. It doesn't need to be 50 pages, but at least have an idea of what you're going to do, what your vision is, what your marketing plan is, like have those basic business components. But you really do need to make sure that you have a little bit of a safety net. And I would recommend that if you have another job or have another income stream, that you keep it in the beginning, because one of the other lessons is that we did a lot of, I should say I did a lot of field testing. My mother and I did a lot of field testing, a lot of market testing before we would go to the next step, before you invest more of your own money, before you ask anyone else for more money. Make sure that you get the feedback, you know, because every step of the way is somebody's money. It's your money or it's someone else's money. And there should be accountability to yourself or to your investor, right? And so that's one of the biggest tips is, you know, we started out not making sauce. That's not how we started out. I started out doing events, right? Like, and actually we didn't even start out there. Let me back up further. My mother and I were just hosting dinner parties, right? We just enjoyed food, and then we had neighbors over and friends over, and we realized that everybody started just congregating in the kitchen. Like we literally couldn't like serve or eat because everybody just kept asking us so many questions like, how did you make this? And where do you buy this? And how do you shop for this? And what about this type of soy sauce? And I don't know how to pick a wok. And do you have to have a wok? And what about your knife? You know, and so it started in our own kitchen with all these different questions. And then I would say, well, you can go to, you know, this store. And they're like, well, then what is your favorite restaurant? I mean, just all the questions started coming. And I was like, Mom, you know, like, do you want to teach a class together? You know, the local community, you know, education center just said that we could teach a class. So it really just started from our kitchen with all the questions. And that in essence is the consumer, right? I mean, it's your
Right.
potential consumer. It started with the interest and the consumer. And I think that is still where it is now, right? Like, even though
Yeah.
we sell the sauces and we have people on our tours and our classes, it's all about them and what they want and what they're interested in. So that is the other part of the lesson is, you know, each step, I did the tour because people kept wanting to follow me shopping, right? The food tours along Buford Highway. They kept asking about demystifying an Asian market, or I just don't know how to read all the signs in the menus. Can you go with me? Right? So
Yeah.
that's how that started. And then the cooking classes started because people really wanted to be able to make the Asian dishes at home, you know, like a stir fry, a perfect stir
Yeah.
fry. Sounds simple. There's a ton of YouTube videos out there now, but I think it's just still hard to do, you know, without someone
Yeah.
kind of guiding you and giving you the key steps. And so every step of the way has really been about what do our fans want? What
Right.
does the consumer want? And then so now the sauces were not part of the plan either. They were born from our cooking classes. We would
Yeah.
just be like cooking along, you know, telling people how to do a stir fry or how to do a fried rice or how to do their favorite, you know, Chinese dish or spring rolls and egg rolls. And then they noticed that sometimes we brought in pre-made sauces, and other times we would just show them from scratch how to do the sauces. But the class would be about 2.5 hours, you know, 2 hours or so for a full hands-on cooking class, because we specialized in the hands-on. And then they wanted to take us home. They're like, well, can you just like make some extra of that sauce, you know? And I'm like, all right, I have a master's degree from Harvard, right? In public policy and social policy and in human relations, from, you know, my previous work. And now I need to figure out how to make and bottle a sauce. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well,
So that's
it's,
how that was born. So you talk about pivoting and you talk about
yeah.
lessons, and it's really about just listening to your customer and, you know, obviously reading about the trends and what's going on out there, but it's really about listening to the questions they have, whether it's in my kitchen or whether it's now, what next recipe sauce they want, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
or
love
the
that.
events. I mean, we keep
Yeah.
doing the events. The Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year dinner started out with 20 friends 10 years ago, because my mother and I looked around and were like, well, we'd like to do something for the Lunar New Year, but I'm not sure we want to stand around, kind of with all the styrofoam, and, we're not always in the mood for all the clanging bells and the ribbon dancing and all the singing and stuff. I said, we just want to have a nice sit down dinner with friends, and just kind of remind ourselves of what the holiday's about, the tradition. Just, a quiet evening. And so it just started out with friends, and then we had one friend, another friend, and a neighbor, and a neighbor. And so then it grew to about 200 people last year.
Yeah, that's so incredible. There's a lot you've said here, and I just want to touch on a few of those things because it's very inspiring to me. I think the first thing that you said, Natalie, was about the self-care. And thank you for bringing that up, because it's, for most business owners, especially women, it's like last on the list until we hit a wall or get completely burned out. And I know I've been there over the years.
I have
And
too. I mean,
I'm
there's
sure
still
you
the
have.
late nights, and I don't know what day it is now, especially, right? Weekend,
Yeah,
weekday, evening, it was all about the
so,
same.
exactly. And so I think to accomplish all the things that you want, you do need to have that energy. So thank you for touching on that. And I love that you brought up about, making sure that you do have a bit of a safety net. And then also, you've had mentors, get support, don't feel like you have to do it on your own. And then really tap into the consumer, find out it's really about your customer, what they want. And it's really beautiful how it's evolved for you, from your kitchen to really just following the needs of your customer, and then, having these unbelievable events in your sauce. And
I mean, there's been learning along the way, and there have been some things that don't work out. I mean, we've done farmers markets, we've done, you know, food shows, we've done some in food service because we thought, restaurants and hotels are another part of our customer. We've done outdoor demos when it's storming and thunderstorm. We've done indoor demos where there's just one table. I've gone to, very simple spaces, and I've gone to chandelier, you know, um, exclusive resorts, right? And so we've tried it all, and we've done it all, and we try to take up every opportunity like it's a new opportunity, right, to reach different people. Because the other thing that was important to me was not only reach one segment, one type of person, one type of shopper, one type of cook, or one type of chef. So maybe that's a reflection of me, because I'm really not a fancy chef. My mother is a little bit more so. I'm a little bit more, I went through my vegetarian years. She eats a little bit more meat. I sometimes is very lazy, and I'm just grabbing, like, frozen things and trying to figure out what I can make from it, or grabbing one cucumber or one zucchini and just doing a one vegetable stir fry. So I feel like it's important to meet people where they are. So it's not just the consumer, but it's just meeting people where they are. And it doesn't matter if you shop at Whole Foods Market, or if you shop at Kroger, or if you shop from the farmer's market, or if you use food stamps, right? And so part of my, I guess, human relations training, but also just because of my own family stories of coming from nothing and having a lot of blessings, is that not everybody has those blessings. Not everybody is going to be able to have imported European or Asian ingredients for all the recipes. So I've made it a point of trying to not have really a lot of fancy things in my recipes. And it's not to say that those aren't nice and good and delicious, but that's not necessarily my role, right? Like, my strength is to meet people where they are. And I think because of my growing up in a small town, small southern town, it gives me a different perspective than, say, growing up in Chinatown in New York, or growing up in California, where there are a lot of Asians around, and you can go anywhere and buy whatever you want, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
Asian international supermarkets down the street from you. So that's a very different perspective and a very different experience that I think has influenced what Chinese Southern Belle is about versus if I had grown up in California. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, I do. I like that. And thank you for bringing that, which actually leads me into what I wanted to ask you next is, the food industry is so competitive, and so what is it that you feel has made Chinese Southern Belle stand out and see such widespread success in such a competitive industry?
It is super competitive. I can't tell you how competitive it is. And I think the barriers are tough, especially for small business. And I think it does affect more women and minority owned businesses. So I'd love to see more support there. Um, some of these contract accounts, national contract accounts, really does block out a lot of small businesses. Perseverance has definitely been a big part of it. I think WeBank has been a part of it, whether it's WeBank or a similar type of mentoring support organization specifically for women. I think it's important to tap into. I think being authentic has been another thing that I guess I just do naturally because I'm here, I'm from the South, it's not a marketing gig. For me, it's living the story, it's sharing the story, it's eating together. That's all real, talking about
Yeah.
growing up in a small town, being called a chink when I was a little girl, my dad being called Charlie, and he was like, my name isn't Charlie, it's Edward. And they were calling him Charlie Chan, right? Because he was the only one. Those are the stories that, are part of who you are. So I think part of overcoming some of the challenges and the competitiveness is to be real. And
Yeah.
obviously your realness has to be, if it's a business, right? You could be a nonprofit, right? And have your own vision and mission, and it doesn't matter what your sales are, or how many people come to your sermons, right? If you're a nonprofit. But if you are going to be a business, and this was a question early on that I had to think about. Sometimes my mom jokes with me about being a nonprofit business, meaning like I have I'm a business with a nonprofit heart,
Yeah.
So
And
I
I
guess
like how you've tied all that together. I
yeah,
mean, because it's almost as if, Natalie, the passion that got you through, that you had in the political career, and really wanting to make a difference and helping people to, basically be valued no matter what race they are or the color of their skin. You kind of shared that same passion through
right.
food in a
Because
sense,
I get
right?
my synergy, right? I get my synergy from the tours, from the classes, from the people that come to my classes. Early on, well, still now, there's a lot of stereotyping going on. Like people don't really know exactly what, or they laugh and they're like, what is a Chinese Southern Belle? Or they're like, oh, that's cute. And then they don't realize that it's based on my stories and based on my life. So I draw the energy. And of course, you get the feedback, right? You get the marketing feedback, but really, I get the personal energy. It's a synergy in my events. And so that's why I think even though the events may not be the big money makers, right? That's another lesson, is that you have to figure out what your balance is. If your goal is to become X, number millionaire, billionaire by a certain age, then you have to have everything line up, right, to get you there. But my goal was not that. My vision was always to have an integrated kind of business. And there's not really a model for that kind of business. You can say, oh, I want to be a B Corp, I want to be S Corp, I want to be the social. Those are things that came on later. But I decided that, my personality is an integrated kind of personality. It's a connector. So my business reflects that. So I tried lots of different things, and not everything is a success. I mean, not all my tours and not all the classes were a success, um, but they brought me synergy as well as consumer feedback about what people wanted, right? And it feeds my soul. I mean, what you do, it is so hard in this business, as you probably know, especially with the COVID impacts. I mean, all my events came to a screeching halt, right? So now
Right.
I have to figure out not only what will personally feed my soul, because that's really something that I love doing. I love the interaction, the live interaction
Mhm.
of making food together. So I have a personal loss, like a hole in my heart, not being able to see my fans and be able to interact cooking together. But also, the tours are something that people really wanted and needed. They needed to
Yeah.
get out. They had questions. They liked doing the tastings with me, and so I have to figure out how to pivot as a business, because that was a huge revenue loss at the same time, right? So on
Oh,
a personal
yeah.
level and on a business level, there are huge lessons to be learned
Yes.
from being flexible, being adaptive, being open. What you think might make you money may not, and what you think doesn't make you money might.
Right.
So I feel like the whole time I was pivoting. I mean, I'm pivoting a lot now, right, because of some of the virus impacts. I hope that I'll come out stronger and better in the end. But Zoom is not a interactive class. You know what I mean? Like, I can do a cooking class on Zoom, but it just isn't the same.
Right,
But
to get
I
that
hope,
direct connection, because what
right,
you do is there's such a connection with what you do. But what I
exactly.
love about you, Natalie, is that you're authentic, you're real. And I do think we're in a climate where it's about trust.
Mhm.
And people want to know not just the brand, but the person behind the brand and the story behind the brand. I think your story is so engaging and so powerful and so moving. And I think that's inspiring for those business owners that are listening right now. Just be you and tell that story and move from your heart. And you're going to attract so many more people to you, which, you've clearly done.
And I think you can't avoid the fact that being a woman and being a small business makes a difference, meaning it's a good thing, but there are also challenges, and I do think that we need to support each other, and sometimes we have to be better. And so make sure you reach out and support each other. Um, I mean, the other thing that I've done that has been helpful is I'm active in the community, and I'm also engaged in other networks. And so I was tapped for Leadership Atlanta, which is an amazing network, but it's also been an amazing program overall, like for content. And so I think being involved with other organizations like WeBank and other passions that you might have, whether it's a tennis club, right? I mean, I play tennis as well. I also am part of a recreational cycling group that has mostly Black American members. And so I'm able to um, learn and listen to them as well, because right now, and also because of my background in human relations, there is anti-Asian American sentiment going around. I mean, I don't think that's going away either. I mean, um, there's been a surge, because of some of the politics going on, because of just the world and which we live in right now. And that's another layer that I've had to deal with, which is the anti-Asian harassment and hostility that's going on. I mean, I'm having to find all my t-shirts that have American flags and Georgia grown and American words and put on my cap, my Nike cap, things that make it look like I'm all American, so that I don't have to deal with some of those looks and those slurs going on. And
That's
that's,
horrible. It's just so disgusting, so frustrating.
you know,
There's just no words, right, for this type of racism. And yeah, I'm Jewish, and I had a lot of that racism growing up too. But it's just, yeah, when you're faced with it, it's such ignorance, and you
I
know.
mean, it's related to my brand. So, you talk about the business part of it. I hope that it's not going to have um, irreparable repercussions. But even before the pandemic hit, we were given, like, we were sometimes told, well, there's only one slot. Like there's only one slot for an Asian product, or, everything has to fit on one aisle in the grocery aisle. Like all the ethnic, all the whatever, whoever decides is the non-mainstream, all the international, all the global, you get one section.
Yeah.
You get one aisle. And so even before, the most obvious kind of, Asian American kind of backlash, we were already being pigeonholed a lot of times and stereotyped. And I would have to say, but we're made in the USA, we're made in Georgia, we're a Georgia company, we're not foreign, but we're
Yeah.
probably on more shelves in the international section than anything else.
Well, it's
So I
just
kind
hard
of,
enough. Yeah, it's
it's a
hard enough
paradox.
running a business and then having to overcome that. I mean, you're so driven, and I know that the persistence will get you there. But I'm just inspired by your passion. And question to you: how have you leveraged your WeBank certification, to support your business growth? So for those that are listening right now and that are certified or are thinking of getting certified, how have you done it, and how do you recommend other business owners to leverage this amazing organization and those relationships?
Well, I am an active member of the local affiliate, which is GWBC, the Greater Women's Business Council, which has, a wonderful staff and leadership. And so I've been involved in some of their local events, and they continue to try to have them online. But so I've gone to the networking events. I have participated in some of the lunches. I was awarded the Trailblazer Award, the Small Business Trailblazer Award last year. So that was a wonderful gala event. I have also put the logo on my business cards and my signature. So I think graphically, to raise awareness and let folks know that we are a WeBank certified enterprise. I have also been involved in some of the diversity supplier certifications, right? Like there's programs that you can take advantage of, and you have to be certified by WeBank to participate or to qualify. So I have used it in that way to get on the list for supplier diversity. So that probably has helped us in some ways to get some business.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, as you were saying earlier too, it's all about relationships and your networks and all of that. And, you've done an amazing job at really garnering those. So it's, and I know this is definitely a challenging time, especially for the food industry, so you, as you said, you've always got to be pivoting. You've always got to be innovating and be flexible, for any time in business, but especially now. What is your, just kind of, leaving with this, ending on this note, what is your ultimate goal for Chinese Belle, and how do you see yourself making a difference in the world?
Well, I think the original tagline that we started with almost 10 years ago, opening minds one mouth at a time, is really the vision that I have, which is an integrated one. I mean, obviously we can do it through different events and tours and through the sauces, that are family recipes, and the sauces themselves are an integration of the Asian heritage, my Chinese heritage, and the South, right? They have the sweet chili peach and the soy ginger Vidalia onion. And Allison, do you know what a Vidalia onion is?
You know what? I actually do, believe it or not. And I am
Yay,
the
yay.
worst cook ever. So I'm actually shocked that I do.
So I think to answer your question, whether it is a hands-on event that hopefully we'll be able to do again, or we'll do our best through Zoom, to the food tours, to the family recipe sauces. I mean, it's really about the authenticity, and it is about bringing people together in whatever medium, in whatever size, to not only be able to kind of have your fried rice and egg roll and eat it too, but hopefully also to break some stereotypes along the way and to build some trust and build some bridges along the way. And it's, not only on the personal level, but I think, we could help each other, obviously, between small businesses, between companies, right, between mentoring. So it's really all about the connections and being open to the beauty of it all. And, of course, there are times when you have to focus, right? And you're like, all right, I've got to, if I'm going to be, a multimillionaire by a certain age, then I've got to find out what my highest revenue margin items or events are, right? There are times where you just have to make the business decisions. But I think for me, at least, it's more than about the money, and so you have to still have that as a basis. Obviously, we're not a nonprofit, we are a business, so you keep your eyes on that ball. But I think it's okay to have these other balls if they're important to you, and I think it's really knowing yourself and knowing what your vision is, right? Because it may not be what your vision is for Pinnacle, right?
Right.
It is my vision. So I think as you're thinking about your passion, your business, that you want to start, it's really clear. It's really important to be clear about what you want out of it, right?
Yeah.
Because that in the end, our time is limited, and, everybody's time is limited. And, for me, it's about bringing smiles and raising awareness, right? Whether it's about how to find the right soy sauce, or it's about my, Asian upbringing in Smyrna, Georgia, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's about connecting. And so I think if you have a clear vision about what you want to get out of it and what makes you happy, and then match it, right? Obviously, it has to be aligned with what other people want and what makes
Yeah.
them happy, or it could be a service, or it could be a product that makes them happy, right? Then that alignment is beautiful. And however much money you want to make, then you need to align your goals with that, right? For me, it was more about I had to, I wanted to be closer to my parents. And I'm working on a family history documentary, and I'm working on a book, and I want to do a podcast. But if those aren't your goals, right, and you have
Yeah.
different goals, then it's important to have the business be aligned with that. So my vision for Chinese Southern Belle is opening minds one mouth at a time. It's breaking egg rolls together, raising awareness, building bridges, creating new friendships and new partnerships, and being happy
Yeah.
with all the privilege and all the blessings that I've been given from all the people who came before me, all the people who helped me along the way, and to enjoy being an American, because I was really given such a huge privilege by my parents coming here, as young graduate students, and they gave us really everything. So that's
Well,
my vision, is to be able to give back some of what they gave me.
well, you're doing that and so much more and so much more. I honestly, it's so beautiful. I love your story. I love your passion. And I know that you're in a time of reinvention, but there's so much success. There's so many more people, Natalie, that you're going to impact. So thank you so much for being with us today, sharing your passion, your story. I'm going to continue to stay in touch with you and see all the magic that you're making in the kitchen and in the world. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Allison. I'm sorry about the background noise,
That's
but
okay. That's okay.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for WeBank and all the support they've given us along the way, and all the mentors. We could not have done it without them. So thank you so much for all you're doing as well.
Well, thank you. And on behalf of WeBank and to those of you that are listening today, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. I have had a blast talking to Natalie. I'm super inspired. And also to know, go ahead and subscribe to Women Who Own It, our podcast. You can find us on Spotify, you can find us on iTunes, anywhere where you will find podcasts. And so when you subscribe, you will be notified every time there is a new episode. So enjoyed spending time with you. Thanks again, Natalie. And until next time, get out there, elevate yourself because you are worth it. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, y'all. See you later.